Welcome back. All right, so we're going to talk about the New York Islanders today, and the New York Rangers after this, of course, going in alphabetical order, being as it is. And with the New York Islanders, it is going to be a very fascinating season in that now the expectation level is a little bit higher. I've underrated them, not underrating them this year. Nope. So now I might be going to the other direction. My rating on them, my prediction is second in the Metro Division. Why? Because Barry Trotz is behind the bench. Their defense is still pretty damn good. Even without Nick Leddy, it's pretty good. Their goaltending is always really good. And so even though their special teams has a weakness on the power play and their goal scoring isn't fantastic, it's not a big deal. The Islanders play a completely different style of hockey to most other teams in the game. There are very few whistles in an Islanders game. There are very few penalties in an Islanders game, either for the Islanders or against the Islanders. The Islanders, over the last couple of years, I think have drawn the fewest power plays in the NHL. But they also don't give up a lot. And it's that style of play that they have, where there are few opportunities, and it's all predicated on the counterattack for the New York Islanders. It works. So their power play, 18.8%, 20th overall. Yes, that needs to improve. But again, special teams don't decide that. It doesn't feel like special teams decide the Islanders games very often. Their penalty kill, 83.7%. That's 6th overall. So we will see how this year goes for the Islanders. Goal scoring, 152 goals last season, which was 21st overall. But goals against, 125, which is 2nd overall. So are they going to miss Eberle up front? Absolutely. Is that crippling? I don't think so. There's some cap flexibility they have now that maybe they didn't before. So we'll see. Their draft picks, notable draft picks since 2015. Matthew Barzal drafted 16th overall in 2015. I still assume that Don Sweeney gets a thank you gift basket from the Islanders every year for that. Beauvillier drafted at 28th. So two very good top 6 forwards drafted by the Islanders that year. 2016, they drafted Kiefer Bellows at 19. He's still waiting for a chance to be a regular. And I think this might be the year. With the exits that we see, this might be the year that Bellows gets into the lineup more regularly. Sebastian Aho drafted 139th in 2017, or also known as the other Sebastian Aho. 2018, Wallstrom drafted 11th. Dobson drafted 12th. And then Bodie Wild drafted 41st. We'll see if Bodie Wild ends up getting into some games this year. Holmstrom was drafted 23rd overall in 2019. And then in 2020, they only had 5 draft picks. And their first pick was 90th overall. This year, of course, they didn't draft until 52nd overall. And they drafted Ratu, who 2 years out from that draft was projected as probably the guy to go number 1. And instead he goes 52nd to the New York Islanders. So that's a draft pick that may end up being a steal for the New York Islanders. So their record over the last 3 years tells you a good story here. 48, 26, and 8 in 2018, 2019. They were second in the Metro Division. They sweep Pittsburgh in round 1, and in round 2 they lost against Carolina, also in a sweep. They then got swept by the Boston Bruins in the next round. So 2019, 2020, they finished 35, 23, and 10. They're 5th in the Metro. And they didn't look fantastic going into the playoffs. However, in the playoffs, they get all the way to the conference final where they lost against the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I thought they gave Tampa quite the headache in that series. 2020, 2021, 32, 17, and 7. 4th overall in the East. So two years in the Metro. Last year, of course, in the makeshift East Division. Now they'll be back in the Metro. And, of course, they lost in the semifinal against Tampa Bay. So semifinal, conference final, basically the same round. And each time it's the Stanley Cup champions that stopped them. But they gave the Stanley Cup champions a headache again this year. So we'll see if the New York Islanders can still do that. And I think they can. Now, my prediction of them being second in the Metro is kind of predicated on me believing that Lou Lamoriello's probably not done. Whether it's something done between now and October or something done in October, maybe November, I still think there are additions coming to the New York Islanders. But this forward group isn't bad. It is not an awful forward group. And this is part of the reason, again, why I'm like, yeah, I'll put them at second. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe they end up 5th or 6th. Because the Metro's pretty close and pretty tough to get ahead in. But I'll definitely be willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. So their forward group is as follows. You've got Anders Lee, who's coming back from injury, and team captain. Barzell, who has that next gear offensively that I think we'll see more regularly soon. Bailey, Beauvillier, who had an excellent second half of the season. Brock Nelson, Oliver Wahlstrom. Wahlstrom could be that goal scorer that improves on this offense that was 21st in goals scored and could improve that power play that was 20th. So look for Wahlstrom to try to force his way into that conversation and onto that first unit power play. Johnston, Pajot, Panik. Now this is where I think we see extra guys brought in because I don't think Johnston or Panik end up on a third line spot. And then you've got Martin, Komarov, and Clutterbuck. With Cizikas not being signed, Martin, Komarov, and Clutterbuck's likely your fourth line. And we'll see how that goes. If it's still called the identity line or what they call it. And I know there were people who didn't like the identity line name, but I thought it worked. And I understood why it was called that because it really spoke to that hard work, the just the work ethic the team has was spoken to with that nickname, and it works. And I think every team has their own. Every team has something that like that line, and yet that fourth line's kind of was the perfect fourth line, and we'll see if they can have that work in their favor without Cizikas this year, if in fact he doesn't return. And then you've got Bellows, who wants a job, Zarnik, who's proven before he can play a fourth line role here and there, Holmstrom, who may force himself in, and Koivula could as well, right? So there's some decent depth here, enough that I don't think they fall off the map. And if you point out Eberle and Palmieri and Zajac, I'm not going to say that those aren't big losses, but this is a team that wasn't scoring to win a lot of their games. It was preventing goals against, it was smart play, it was low-scoring games, and it was a lot of it strategy. And I think one thing that helps the New York Islanders is when you have a team that succeeds by hard work and strategy and overall play, losing individual players shouldn't hurt as much because it's about being able to play that system, that style, and the goals are kind of a bonus. So their blue line, which is going to be counted upon, and with the loss of Leddy, we'll see how things go for them, right? Pulick, that's your tandem that shuts everything down. And is offensively underrated. Hickey and Mayfield, Green and Dobson likely round out that top six. Dobson, I think, is going to try to push his way into top 4 minutes this year. And then you've got Aho, Wild, and Grant Hutton is also there as well. Grant Hutton, 26 years of age. We'll see whether or not he gets into a couple of games. And Bodie Wild might be an interesting one for them to bring in and see what he can do. Their prospects list, I put Ratu up there. They're one of those teams that a lot of their good young players are already in the lineup or they're already projected to make the lineup this year. But we'll see. We'll see how things go. And I mean, Ratu is signed to his entry-level contract, so he may come over and try to push his way into a job too. Obviously, he's going to want to do that. So the Stanley Cup odds right now for the New York Islanders, 20-1, which is better than a lot of the other teams that I've had on the board. And a lot of that is because Barry Trotz, the team's been in the Final Four 2 years in a row, and they seem to overachieve. You've got Varlamov, Sorokin, and Appleby as your three goalies. Sorokin, first year last year, played pretty well. Slowish start, but played pretty well after. Varlamov, a goalie who, when they picked him up, it looked like it was a questionable move, a head-scratcher. They went from Leonard to Varlamov, and Varlamov's been great. So I don't think there's any regrets there. And, we'll see if that still holds up. And then when you look at their record, they haven't had a Stanley Cup since 1983. They need one. This is a franchise that needs one. They're moving into a brand new building. And that's what's going to tell the story this year. What could derail any discussion of a playoff spot could be the road trip to start the season. They have a 13-game road trip to start the season. They don't play a home game in October at all. In fact, their first home game is November 20th against Calgary. So all of the games they play in October are road games. Starting with the 14th, they're in Carolina. That's not easy. Then they're in Florida on the 16th. Also not easy. The 19th, they go to Chicago, which is not really a give-me game. Not at this point. Chicago envisions themselves as a playoff team. Then they go to Columbus on the 21st. That'll be a little bit easier than the first three. Then they go to Arizona on the 23rd. Arizona, I'm projected to be towards the bottom. Probably a winnable game there. But then they go to Vegas the next night. So, second half of a back-to-back in Vegas, not easy. Then they have 6 days before they play again, and their next game's at Nashville. So it's going to be a long road trip to start the season. Those first 13 games, if they can win like 8 of them, they can win 8 games on that 13-game road trip to start the season. The odds of them making the playoffs are absolutely astronomical at that point, because then you just have to be pretty good at home, right? Because you've already done 13 games on the road. You've still got 41 games left at home. And now you've only got 28 left on the road. So that road trip could very well decide their season very early. In that if they bomb on the road, now you have to win at home, and all that pressure's on you. But if you win those games on the road, you set yourself up nicely for the rest of the season. So there you go. So the question mark I have is still, do these guys come back? Do Palmieri, Zajac, and Cizikas end up coming back? And if they don't, who comes in instead? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Maybe me posting this video means the Islanders end up picking up players today or tomorrow, and we'll see. But I'm going to hold to that second in the Metro. Just hold to that. We'll see. Maybe I'm overestimating them this year. Maybe that's the way this is working. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.